G'day there, it's Dave here, Dave Mills, with a very, very exciting video. And I'm so happy to talk to you about this. Now, the knights, the center, and the pawns. Now, the knight's relationship to the center, every piece's relationship to the center is related through the pawns. The pawns are the soul of chess. And because they're the structure, they're the bricks and mortar. Now, we're going to talk about pawn chains, how this pawn defends, this pawn defends, this pawn defends, this pawn. We're going to talk about all sorts of different things to do with the pawns. But first, I'm just going to give you a quick heads up, a quick reminder, if you haven't seen any videos on the pawns. These are the center pawns and sub-center pawns. So, you have two center pawns, the king pawn, behind which the king starts, and the queen pawn, behind which the queen starts. Now, the bishop pawns are the sub-center pawns, and they don't occupy the center, but they attack it from the edge. They attack it from the flank, and so are very, very powerful. So, let's have a look what happens. Now, pawns can move 1 or 2 squares, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them from the start, and because this video is actually about the knights, but I'm just going to show you how they're connected to the center and how it's so important. Now, so just to have a look at the center pawn, so center pawn, king pawn, queen pawn, king bishop pawn, the sub-center pawn on the king side, sub-center pawn on the queen side. In traditional sense, this is the queen, bishop, pawn. Now, the reason why I like to remind myself of these traditional names, in annotation, you just talk about the coordinate square that the pawn is moving to. But in a way, that's like lost a little bit of the flavor, a little bit of the richness of understanding. Because the more you can define, categorize, and understand, the more you're able to tap into your intuition, the more you're able to tap into your creativity. Because there's two sides to chess. Your creativity and inspiration and instinct and guts, the intuition, the creativity, the inspiration, and then on the other side is your reason and logic. And so it's actually about balancing these two forces under time pressure. And that's why chess is the greatest strategy game that many people consider ever devised. And it's 1300 years, so it's running strong. And the last time it was upgraded, got a facelift, was in the middle, a few hundred years ago. So now let's just talk about that. Okay. Now, let's just put, these are the center squares here. These are the center squares here. All right. We've got rooks on the edges, rooks in the corners. And these are the center pawns here. Okay. Now, the knight is a slow piece, but even slower than the knight is the pawn. And the logic